I sensed something was off the moment. Cole said synergy in a meeting about printer toner. This was day 3 of his arrival. He sat in my chair, cracked open a Celsius, and started lecturing the operations floor like he was the next Steve Jobs. If Jobs wore knockoff Rolexes, reeked of body spray and bankruptcy. He pointed at the whiteboard full of supply chain contingencies. I had spent weeks mapping out and said, let's circle back on this bandwidth conversation offline. What bandwidth? We were drowning in expired licenses. Half our vendors were threatening breach notices, and someone, probably him, was editing access logs in the compliance portal. But I smiled. That's what you do when the VP's son waltzes in acting like he owns the building. You smile, nod, and hope the rich kid gets bored and drifts into a LinkedIn article about hustle culture. Only Cole didn't drift. He dug in, he showed up to meetings uninvited, rewrote task assignments, reallocated interns, and even changed his email signature to Chief Ops Visionary before sending it to external clients. Camera pans while you're listening, maybe on your lunch break. Take a second to hit subscribe and like the video. 93% of you listen without showing support. It's free, it helps us keep these office stories coming, and honestly, it keeps me from putting a keyboard through drywall. Anyway, back to the chaos. I kept my head down like always. It's the unspoken rule of the mid-level analyst. Don't rock the boat, don't talk in strategic alignment meetings, and for the love of God, don't correct a VP's son when he mislabels $4.7 million as miscellaneous in a procurement report. You just silently fix it at 10 p.m. while eating vending machine pretzels and listening to your soul evaporate. But lately, the vibe had shifted. A full compliance sweep was looming, external auditors, legal observers, even whispers of federal oversight. HR was holding wellness town halls, which really meant stress balls and granola bars, while our $75 million SaaS contract with Nextrix imploded over untraceable version control issues. Someone was tampering, and you could smell the panic. Then Cole returned from a strategy immersion week in Cabo, suddenly interested in the compliance portal. He walked up with a thumb drive and asked, "What SEP's the admin key for access research logs?" I said, "That SEP's not something I can share." He laughed casually, like I set just declined his card at Olive Garden. "Come on, Jess, we set are all on the same team." "Yeah, a team where only some of us go to jail." He started hovering, late nights, odd hours. Twice I came in early and found lights on in my office. He brushed it off as backlog work. What backlog? He didn't even know where the file server was until last Thursday. Then he began copying people from legal and records on emails, pretending he'd discovered the audit irregularities I'd flagged months ago, using my phrasing word for word. My blood boiled. But I stayed silent. I've seen nepotism before, but at least others knew when to let real workers mop up their mess. Cole was different, too cocky, too twitchy, like he knew something was coming and was scrambling to get ahead of it. One morning, I noticed a red folder in my drawer, thick, shoved halfway back. That's when I knew something ugly was about to hit. It was 6:48 a.m. when I unlocked my corner of the operations floor. Coffee still too hot to drink. Inbox already mocking me with 47 unread flags. Only the sickly blue glow of my desk monitor lit the room. I dropped my bag, booted up, and half listened to the HVAC hum. Then I heard it, fast, hesitant footsteps. Cole, he wasn't supposed to be in yet. Usually showed up closer to noon, sunglasses on, smelling like last night's networking bar. But here he was, creeping in like a raccoon, wrinkled khakis, quarter zip that probably cost more than my rent. He passed my cube, slowed, then backtracked. "Morning," he said, voice too cheery for someone who'd just wrestled a hangover. I nodded, bright and early. He laughed nervously, crouched by my desk, lower drawer clicked shut. He popped up fast, adjusted his shirt, mumbled about client decks, and vanished toward the break room. I didn't move. That drawer felt radioactive. It hadn't been opened in days. His hand shook. That wasn't nerves. That was guilt. I turned slowly to the dusty webcam on my bookshelf, hidden between binders and a sad succulent. I'd had it running for months ever since. A thumb drive vanished from my desk and reappeared wiped clean in Lost and Found. Local storage only. No cloud. I'm not an idiot. I logged in, fast-forwarded through static, and froze at 6:43 a.m. There he was, Cole, entering with a borrowed badge, red folder under his arm. He opened my drawer, stuffed it in, slammed it shut, then did something that made my skin crawl. He took a selfie with my monitor in the background, smirking. This wasn't a mistake. This was a setup, a frame job, and a sloppy one. If I hadn't seen it, if I'd walked in later and found the folder, maybe I'd panic and turn it into legal thinking I'd found it. They'd pin it on me. I exhaled slowly, rage cooling into strategy. I wasn't going to confront him or demand HR intervention. No, I'd wait, watch, and make sure the match burned his fingers, not mine. The next morning, I dressed for war. Not heels, not flats, boots, minimal makeup, neutral expression, the look of someone who knows where the bodies are buried. Cole showed up late, of course. I watched him swagger into the corner office he'd claimed as his op zone, talking too loud on the phone about a preliminary verbal from a partner in Atlanta, total fiction. He left for lunch, briefcase unlocked on the chair beside his desk. When the elevator doors closed, I moved. No hesitation. Walked into his office, shut the door. His briefcase sat open. Laptop, cologne, random printouts. I snapped a photo, time-stamped. Then I pulled out the red folder from my bag, untouched, sealed, slipped it behind his MacBook, partially sticking out like he'd meant to grab it but forgot. Another time-stamped photo. Zipped it up, adjusted the strap, walked back to my desk. By the time Cole returned, smelling like overpriced sushi and failed ambition, I was elbows deep in license reports. He kept glancing at my desk, waiting for me to explode. I gave him nothing. Because I wasn't the one who left their compliance portal login open on someone else's computer last week. Yeah, that happened. Monday, I returned from lunch to find my desktop active, mouse still warm. Cole had borrowed it and left a compliance review tab open under his username. Breadcrumbs everywhere. This wasn't petty sabotage anymore. This was felony-level tampering, and he thought he could pin it on me, the quiet analyst who never made waves. Well, I hoped he enjoyed the calm before the storm, because the sweep was coming, and when it hit, he was going under, not me. Thursday, 9:03 a.m., no warning, no calendar invite. Compliance arrived quietly. 5 people in black polos and steel-toed expressions. 2 more followed. Legal, maybe external counsel. You could smell liability insurance in their wake. HR called a hold in place. Code for don't move unless you're bleeding. Phones stopped ringing. Slack went dead. Even the intern humming TikTok songs went silent. I didn't blink. I'd planned for this. My pulse beat steady, not fear. Focus, like lining up a shot. Cole, however, turned the color of skim milk. He tried to joke about intense vibes, then bolted for the break room. Too late. The compliance lead, Janine Morrill, last seen during the procurement clawback debacle, walked to the center of the floor and announced, "All personnel are to remain in their departments. Desks will be searched. Laptops will be collected. Phones will be inspected only with cause. If you need the restroom, raise your hand. No one leaves until we said or finished." You could feel the whole floor tense. I nodded and kept typing. My screen showed a dummy spreadsheet titled Q3 Training Hours. Boring enough. My flash drive, with every timestamp and photo, was tucked deep in my sock because no one bothers the woman in cardigans. The sweep began, quiet, efficient, in teams. Drawers, keyboards, even trash cans. You'd be shocked how many people hide things under their keyboards. They reached my desk in under 10 minutes. I smiled. Morning, let me know if you need anything. They nodded and moved on. No chit-chat. My drawers were neat, my desktop ordinary, my login history unremarkable. Exactly what I wanted them to see. When one officer opened my lowest drawer and found only a stapler and linty gum, I caught a brief flicker of confusion in her eyes, as if she expected something. I stayed calm, typing nonsense into cell bay 14. Then I overheard a whisper near the compliance cluster. They found something in a briefcase, a red folder, tagged documents, altered metadata. I didn't react, but inside I was quietly elated. That folder was mine. They didn't need to name him. 10 minutes later, they called Cole from across the room. He pretended to scroll, tapping his phone like it might spit him out. "Janine," he said, standing slowly. "Yeah, come with us." He tried to laugh about it being resource alignment, then followed them into the glass conference room. The door shut, blinds closed. Cole Madsen, self-declared chief ops visionary, did not come out for an hour. When he finally burst out, he looked like he'd been through a blender. Red-faced, sweaty jacket half off, collar mangled. His eyes hunted for blame and landed on me. "You," he barked, loud enough to freeze everyone mid-email. Cubicles craned, people peeked. The floor went silent. "You set me up." He stormed over, wagging a trembling finger. "You planted that folder. You were in the compliance tool last week. This is sabotage. You've been trying to get me fired since I got here." I removed my earbuds, turned to face him. Janine and two HR reps appeared behind him like a slow-moving wall. Cole didn't notice them. He kept unraveling. "You think you're clever? Think you're untouchable because you've been here longer? Daddy won't always save you. You're going to burn for this." Cestus. I stayed quiet, my heart beat steady, my expression neutral. I reached into the upper right drawer, not the one he'd used, and retrieved a sealed manila envelope I'd placed there that morning, labeled with today's date and a sticky note. Plan B. I stood and handed it to Jenny. "Evidence," I said, "for the record." She opened it carefully. Inside, two printed photos. One of Cole's briefcase and its contents, laid out, laptop, cologne, documents. The second, same angle and lighting, now with the red folder tucked behind the MacBook. Both were time-stamped and taken from my phone. The HR rep showed them to Janine, who sighed like she'd seen this film before. Cole backed up. "That doesn't prove anything," he spat. "You could have faked that. Chain of custody, that's not." Janine cut him off. "You left your briefcase unattended in a public-facing office. You claimed exclusive possession. That's now in dispute." He protested that someone was accessing his stuff, that I'd logged into his computer last week. Janine didn't even look at him. "There's no login under your credentials from her machine," she said. "What we found was an active session from your profile on her desktop, left open and idle for 30 minutes. Cole scanned the room. The office that had avoided his eye for weeks was now watching like predators who'd cornered prey. No one bought his act. He demanded to call his father. Janine replied flatly, "You're suspended pending investigation. Legal will contact you." He ranted about being framed. Finally, I spoke one sentence. "Cole, the only thing I've plotted is how to survive your incompetence without losing my pension." Someone snorted. A dam had cracked. Cole's face twisted between rage and panic. I didn't gloat. It wasn't over. By 5:17 p.m., the building felt heavy. Nobody had left in hours. Phones on mute, meetings canceled, Slack silent. A few finance analysts kept typing, probably too scared to stop. Then security announced in the floor group chat. "He steps here." Graham Lair, CEO, founder, the hand that could clear departments before his second coffee, walked in. He didn't stop to talk. A nod to Janine, a brief pause for legal, then he vanished into the boardroom. We waited. At 6:02 p.m., He emerged, jacket off, sleeves rolled, expression cold and measured. He stood in the middle of the floor and asked quietly, "Who was the last person to have eyes on the compliance packet?" Silence. I waited 2 heartbeats, then 3, and stood. I said clearly, nodding toward Cole, "I returned it." That was all. Graham looked at me, not angry, surgical, then to Janine. "I want digital chain of custody logs, badge entries, full metadata comparisons. Tonight. Flag any variation between testimony and digital records." He told legal to list everyone with edit access before and after the metadata changes. Then he looked at Cole. A long pause, then he returned to the boardroom and the blinds closed. Cole looked pale. The atmosphere shifted from fear to inevitability. At 6:49 p.m., 2 security officers walked onto the floor with a third man, badge visible. They headed straight for Cole's cubicle. He jumped up, nearly toppling his chair. "Wait, what is this?" he said, trying to laugh it off. The lead officer did not smile. "Cole Madsen, yes," he puffed, glancing at HR for rescue. "None came. You're being detained on suspicion of corporate fraud, evidence tampering, and breach of data integrity. You may contact counsel, gather your personal items." Cole protested, accused me loudly. "She planted it. She's manipulating records." Janine and legal stepped forward. "We have key card logs, camera footage, corroborated timestamps." The company lawyer read findings: unauthorized file duplication, edit history inconsistencies, a login to an unassigned sandbox server tied to Cole's internal ID. There was enough. Cole fell silent, the swagger gone. The officers escorted him out. His voice echoed behind them. "She framed me. This isn't over." The elevator doors closed. Silence returned. No applause, no relief, only the stunned hush of a floor that had watched a collapse. I did not gloat. I sat perfectly still. The truth had spoken for me. They called me in at 8:12 the next morning. A quiet knock and a nod from HR. Conference room A. Graham. Legal counsel Melissa Vaughn. And Janine waited. 3 chairs. 1 envelope, coffee, and a silence that felt final. I sat, hands folded. Graham looked at me, then nodded. "You handled this," he said quietly. Janine added, "We reviewed your footage, logs, and access reporting. You were precise. You left no room for interpretation." Melissa flipped through files. The documentation had made all the difference. If I'd reacted emotionally, or gone to HR first, this could have gone very differently. Graham leaned forward. "We'd like to offer you a position, Senior Risk Analyst, Internal Investigations Unit, flexible schedule, discretionary bonus, autonomy." It was a good offer. Also 6 weeks late. I smiled, genuine. "This time, thank you. I've accepted a different offer," I said. Melissa arched an eyebrow. "Where?" "Private compliance consulting. Smaller firm, better coffee." Janine smirked. Graham nodded once. "We'll miss you," he said. "I doubt it," I replied, standing and leaving. Back at my desk, I had 1 box, half-packed essentials only. Thumb drive, 2 working pens, a framed photo of my dog in a Halloween costume, the tiny fake plant Learn gave me. Learn showed up 10 minutes later with 2 coffees and her usual grin. "2 sugars, 1 stab of vengeance," she said, handing me the cup. "If you ever get bored of being respectable, consulting pays better. I've seen how you redline contracts." Poetic. I laughed. "I'll think about it." She tapped my cube and left. I placed my cracked badge in the box, closed the lid. No farewell party, no HR balloons, just the busted HVAC rattling, and the knowledge the building would never forget what happened here. The quiet ones remember, and now so would they. I walked out with my back straight and my box light. No speeches, no grudge. I didn't need to destroy him. I let him walk around with the match. Thanks for listening, Office Survivors. Subscribe for more workplace dramas and lessons. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.